Do you like spiders? Have you ever wanted to be a spider? Well, here's your chance. Greetings, mortals. I am Juaraevo, and this is Spider, the video game. Often simply called Spider, this game was developed for the PlayStation in February 1997 by Boss Game Studios and published by BMG Interactive. A demo of this game was available in PlayStation Underground, issue number 1, disc 2, in March of the same year, just 1 month later. This is how I first played the game, as my brother had given me a bunch of PlayStation Underground stuff, and I enjoyed the demo, but I didn't really think much of it at the time. In this game, you're taking control of a cybernetic tarantula created by a nanotechnologist named in the game's instruction manual as Dr. Michael Kelly, who has invented a neural transmitter interface technology to telepathically control cybernetic organisms. But while working late one night, a mysterious organization called Microtech attacks the lab and shoots Michael, causing the transmitter to malfunction and trapping his mind inside the spider. Now, you have to follow the intruders back to their lab and get your body back. This is one of the few PlayStation games to sport a password feature as well as a standard save feature. I'm guessing it's just in case you don't have the money for a memory card, but if you can afford the console, odds are you already have a memory card. Spider is a simple 2.5D platformer with multiple sections, each split into multiple levels with branching paths. In each level, you have to either fight or avoid other cybernetic creatures, including insects, other spiders, scorpions, bats, and even zombie rats. The first few levels, it's pretty easy to be stealthy. That is until you realize they often throw enemies at you out of nowhere, which can lead to some pretty cheap deaths. Luckily, they do include health power-ups, but given the difficulty of some of the later levels, they're not really that helpful. Each level has DNA strands that you can collect. Collect 100 and you get an extra life. It may seem nice at first glance, but that's only before you realize that the game has one major glaring flaw that makes the extra lives almost completely useless. But I'll get to that later. The object is to collect microchips on each stage. You need a certain number of microchips to progress to the next area, and some of them are cleverly hidden. The map shows you how many are in each stage, and each section requires you to collect a certain number before moving on, encouraging you to take risks and explore each level in more detail. Another thing you can collect are these little CD pieces, which, unless you've read the manual, mean absolutely nothing to you. Seriously, when I first started this game, I didn't have any clue what they even were. There are 3 CD pieces in each level. Finding all 3 unlocks a bonus level in that section. I didn't unlock any in my playthrough, so if you want to try that, be my guest. Now let's talk about the music for a minute. The soundtrack for this game was composed by Barry Leach, who also did the music for TFX, as well as the Top Gear and Rush series. The soundtrack for level 1 even includes a Bionic Man reference. Which is a reference I find very fitting given the game's premise. The first level drops you off in a destroyed lab, where you see something I've never seen anyone else talk about. One of the first obstacles you see is a PlayStation 2. I'm not kidding. That's very clearly a PlayStation 2. Now, I find this odd since the PS2 wasn't even announced until 1999. But you can clearly see it there sitting in a vertical stand. The first few levels are pretty straightforward, but it's not too long before the game's biggest, glaring flaw starts to rear its ugly head. You die in 2 hits. Yep, 2 hits, that's it. And considering the enemies often come out of nowhere in this game, you'll be running through lives like a drunk on a bender. And the fact that there are no checkpoints at all in the entire game certainly does not help that. Especially when, just like the enemies, the bizarre placement of some of the obstacles can also lead to some pretty cheap deaths. Seriously, I spent so long on different parts of certain levels just doing nothing but die, die, die. Especially when you get to some of the later levels where the entire level is one big bottomless pit. One wrong move and you're going down, down, down. And again, no checkpoints. But thank God you do have unlimited continues. But let's talk about dying for a minute. When you die in video games, what happens? The screen fades away and shows a static image of the words "Game Over," right? Nope, not in this game. Most members of my younger audience might not be familiar with the old PlayStation 1 games. There are some games that had really, really dark punishments for when you got a game over. This is one of those games. I'm going to warn you right now, if you're squeamish or have a queasy stomach, this is your one and only chance to look away. You have been warned.
Just cut it off.
To say I was shocked when I realized how dark that was would be an understatement. There are no words to convey how I felt seeing that for the first time. Imagine if I were a kid playing that game at 7 years old. I would have had nightmares. It is revealed in that cutscene that the interface unit you use to control the spider is biologically fused to your skull. What's the solution? Cut it off, of course. Yeah. You can understand now why I put a spoiler warning in here. But let's move on, shall we? Other levels you go through include a city, a warehouse, the sewers, the museum, and finally, the Microtech lab. You know how a lot of older games will have those levels that will wind around in an endless loop if you don't take the correct path, like Mario or the Japanese Famicom Transformers game? Yeah, this game has one of those levels. Complete with moving platforms and winding paths, the food cartons level is an endless maze if you don't take the right path. I mean the correct path, not the right one. You don't get any clues going into it, so pay attention to every move you make and expect to make multiple trips through it. Actually, yeah, do take the right path at the fork in the sewer, because the left path teleports you back to the beginning of the level. Oh, and stay out of the water. Apparently tarantulas can't swim. Meanwhile, the museum level takes you to ancient Egypt, which had me feeling like I was watching a Godzilla movie, seeing a giant spider among all the tiny buildings. But the most confusing part of the museum is the boss. Yeah, I forgot to mention this game has bosses. 3 of them, in fact. The first boss, which you face after clearing the warehouse section, is really just a robotic arm. Dodge the bombs it throws, dodge the arm itself, jump over it, nothing to see here. Next. But the museum boss is really creepy. Yeah, this ugly sack of parasitic, oogie-boogie looking knockoff. He drops bricks on you, breathes fire at you, dodge the bricks, jump over the fire, and use the boomerang power-up which they graciously give you at the entrance of the level because you absolutely need it, and aim for its eye. The final section of the game takes you through the evil Microtech lab, where you use circuit boards, cables, and hard disk platters to work your way up to the ceiling, where flies and scorpions hide around every corner. This is where I'm really glad you have infinite continues. Especially since being up on the ceiling upside down, one hit from an enemy can cause you to fall to your death. But once you make it through, you get to arguably one of the weirder final bosses I have ever faced. You won't believe me when I tell you. Are you ready for this? The final boss is, I kid you not, a disembodied, floating brain. He's pretty easy once you get the pattern down. Just trick him into smashing the little light bulb things, then get him to hit them again to electrocute himself, make the final blow to send him melting into oblivion. Underwhelming, I know. The final cutscene shows the spider deactivating the mind link, where the good doctor finally wakes up, scoops up his friend, and heads for the hills just as the microtech lab is blown to smithereens. Mission accomplished, job well done. And that's Spider the video game. There's really not much else to say. It's a fairly decent platformer with some minor flaws, though the 2-hit lives and lack of checkpoints are some serious strikes against it. The challenge presented is fair and the difficulty doesn't ramp up too quickly. And though the randomly placed enemies do tend to make things difficult at times, after you know they're there, they're pretty easy to deal with. Overall, this one definitely gets a pass in my book. I certainly had a lot of fun playing it, and if you're looking for a good way to kill some time, I really recommend it. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Juaraevo, signing off, and God bless.